created to have some fun together, sharing and singing. So, join and enjoy.
Our love for opera brings us together. Thanks for being with us in this trip.
And yes, of course, what a better way to wrap up this series, this season, if you please, where we have had ChatGPT telling us about the greatest opera composers and go back again. What a better way to close it with one of the most hilarious composers of all times. Of course, we have Rossini, we have Donizetti, and why not, we have Maestro Offenbach. Offenbach, as you may, I am pretty sure that you recognize the tune of the music which is played just a few seconds because you know that in these days of the internet, everybody can claim to have the rights about anything, about any composition, or and put you into easy trouble. That's why we are just using a couple of seconds of that. But you can easily capture how the orchestra players are enthusiastic and moreover the audience. And that is the main purpose of opera. Bring us to really feel, to live our emotions, and why not doing it in this better way? This passage, we're going to talk a little more about that operetta in particular, Orfeo Zanfer. We are going to talk about it later, but it is the very, very, very well-known Can-Can. And as it has been the case as for Maestro Rossini, that Disney has borrowed in quotes, has borrowed some of the melodies of Rossini to illustrate, or in the case of The Dance of the Hours from La Gioconda by Amilcare Ponchielli, where the studios have found that the music is so, the tune is so beautiful, so attractive that you can take it from the context of the opera or operetta and bring it to another. To a movie, to a different art in that case, animations in that case, and still being very, very popular. So enough, no, or we will never have enough of the cancan and many, many, many other melodies that Maestro Offenbach created and that really, really prove us la joie de vivre, that we are happy to still be alive. I also wanted to open today's program with a short comment. Unfortunately, not so happy. It's been already, well, it really depends on when you're listening to this program. We are recording this program by the end of January 2024, but it's already been three, and a little more years that the world has been passing more horrible things than ever. We started with the pandemics, where many people unfortunately died, and then all over the world and in most continents, there's been situations where many people have lost their lives, either for natural reasons or either for the most horrible part that we have as humans, where we think that in the name of God, of history, or anything that we want to, or political differences, we have the right to take the lives of people, and that is, of course, something that we will never agree to, because in this program, in this opera we love singing, we also love life, and music, if not the greatest, one of the greatest creations of humans, is to bring us all together. So please let this program be a special, let's dedicate this program to all the people who have suffered, who have had challenges throughout their lives, but still have managed to overcome them and see happiness and see hope in their futures and their life. Please allow me to dedicate this program to you all. So, with that being said, And going back to that very, very sticky melody, tan tan ta da 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 ta da 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 ta 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 da 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 ta da 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 the can. I wanted to mention because I think it's only fair that this part, this comes from a Slovenian orchestra. Slovenian orchestra. It is my understanding that it is mainly youngsters who are part of the orchestra. This orchestra, under the name of, please forgive me if I am mispronouncing it because I don't speak Slovenian. So, Gimnazika Krang Symphony Orchestra. This youth orchestra. Thank you very much for this very lovely moment where we noticed that people in that December 2012 joined with their claps and joined to make it a moment that needs to be remembered. And going back to today's program where we are talking about Maestro Offenbach, first thing that I would like to say at this point, and you know that many times, unfortunately many times, opera lovers are very arrogant. And you may start thinking about how come that you have Offenbach in the same series, in the same season, where you have talked about Maestro Wagner, where you have talked about Puccini, where you have had Mozart, where you have had Bizet. And the reason is very simple. Maestro Offenbach, of course, most of his works vocal works are operettas, and people we have discussed it in the past, not even in this series, but in previous programs along with Katia, that people see this art as a second class. So operetta and zarzuela are usually seen as second class. We go back to those comments. Yes, of course, you will hardly ever build a strong career saying, "Oh, I am a specialist in Offenbach." While you can say, I'm a Verdian baritone, and you will build a career, of course. You can say, I'm a Wagnerian soprano, and you will build a career yourself. But you cannot do the same saying, I am an Offenbach singer, and try to build a career from that. Which doesn't mean that it is easy to sing. We have also mentioned it when we talked about Donizetti and Rossini and other previous programs that for a classical, because singers who have studied it in the classical way of opera tend to be very serious, and everything has to be, like tremendous dramas, like in Tosca, in Cho-Cho-san, in Madame Butterfly. But there is also space for joy, and to make this funny, to make it believable, to make it understandable, and that's what I would like to say now. Offenbach's compositions are in French, even though he is not French. Well, there is a story behind his nationality that we will not refer to here today. But his compositions are in French, and the best way to enjoy them, if you speak French, of course, you would like most of the recordings that are available from Maestro Offenbach's performances are from native speakers of French, which makes it very easy to understand if you handle the language. If you don't, you can always read the subtitles, but it is nice when you listen to people saying or speaking naturally. Because remember that the vocal technique for opera is opposes many times, and in particular to French, because French is a nasalized language. So if you speak French or have studied French, you know that there are sounds that are very nasal, and vocal technique, of course, singers tend to have that. Problem when developing their voice that some of the sounds are nasal, but that is a defect. While the natural sound of French is nasal, so there is an opposition between the singing technique and the language. So, for instance, if you want to say "Oh la la, je vivre," vivre, the r sound cannot be sung. So it is why many singers deform it and say it horribly like "Je veux vivre," which doesn't sound any fair close to "Je veux vivre." So I really recommend that you go and look for videos in YouTube with uh, casts that are made of people who are native speakers of French, because that will give you the perfect sound. That's because I have seen several of them, and I noticed that they keep the original accent of the French language, which makes it even more lovable instead of the artificial sound of the opera singers when because of the vocal technique. Okay, so but it's already 10 minutes and we haven't digged much around Maestro Bizet. But today, since today is a celebration, today we are also celebrating end of January 2024. We are celebrating 72 countries, territories listening to our program. You know that every now and then I like to go over the list and start mentioning those names. Of course, I will insist again. I am very surprised because we are speaking English, which is a widely known language, and we have reached countries that we never thought we would reach. And also, I wanted to mention that you will also notice that there are many countries where one would never suspect that we could find somebody who loves opera and at the same time speaks English. So let's start thinking countries. First group, I would like to think the United people in the United States, our audience in the United Kingdom, still growing. Some of them in Mexico, our native country. Thank you very much. La France. I think you people in France are going to love it in particular. We also have Canada, we have Germany, we have Australia, the Netherlands, and we have India. Now, in this program, also, this program is going to be a little different. Yes, we are going to talk about ChatGPT, Maestro Offenbach, but we are also going to take some time to answer a couple of questions, comments that arrived to our email, and that, given the nature of the questions or comments, I think they are worth to be mentioned here. So, I got a note. Unfortunately, she didn't share from what country she was writing. So if you're, please remember, if you want to send us an email, you can do it at operawillofsinging@gmail.com, operawillofsinging@gmail.com. And so she tells us that she would like to see either Katia or me having more interaction with people, maybe through social media. And she also asks how can she support the program. And let's make a quick note here. This program, this effort of Oprah Will of Singing is in fact part of a project. It's a component of a much wider program which is called Opera en Primera Persona in Spanish. And this Opera en Primera Persona has had some presentations, workshops, and the latest has been the podcast. And all this has happened or has come to life with the participants on resources. We do not have a sponsor, even though I'm not sure if the platform that you are listening to us, you can read that you may be able to support us using Buy Me a Coffee. The name you can find it as Buy Me a Coffee. O number one P. That's how you can find this effort in if you would like to sponsor it. Of course, those donations are always very welcome, even though I'm not sure if that can be read in the platforms that you are listening it to. And going back to that, since we don't have any kind of a sponsorship, we do it with all our own resources. And when Katya has had the time of being with us, it's because either she's not having a presentation, or she's also full booked with her students. She teaches singing. So we try, when possible, or she tries to put some time aside so that she can join us, as it was the case in the program, the first program of Maria Callas. But that cannot always be the case. Of course, any donation that you would like to provide to support, it would be nice. Also, in the same comment, she tells us that she notices that there are not so many updates on that Buy Me a Coffee site. And that is true, and I would like to join the two comments here. Uh, not only it is this effort is carried out with our own resources, but our own resources also means time. I am pretty aware, and I have discussed it with Katia, that we would need a manager, someone to manage it all. I'm not sure if how familiar are you with social media and these digital trends, but they are very time consuming, and that is time that neither Katia or I really have. So we would need somebody to at least do the postings, read the comments, ask us what would be the best way to reply, arrange things, and many things. That is a that takes a good number of hours, and we haven't approached anyone to ask him or her to do it for free. I have also give lots of thought to it, and if anybody wants to support it, being a community manager, that would need to be paid. That either Katia or I have decided to give it or fund it ourselves doesn't mean that we are going to use somebody else's time for free as well. That would be too much to ask. But that would be the reason we don't have that much presence in other social media. Should the situation change ahead, maybe we will let you know. We would also like to have more interaction with you, but provided the limited resources, that is not easy to do. And also, we are addressing a topic that is not that popular. You can have thousands of TikToks with funny or ridiculous things, but opera and the art is not that. Even though we try to make it very personal, we don't like to jump into the easy and funny and ridiculous way of doing it. That's why we haven't jumped into that. We will let you know if that ever happens. Well, now going back to Maestro Offenbach. And if you're familiar with the history of Europe, you know that there's been many changes. So Maestro Offenbach was born in the 19th century, information from ChatGPT, 1819 in Cologne, Prussia. Now that territory is Germany. He's a key figure in the operetta genre. We have already mentioned it. Known for his wit, humor, and melodious compositions, which we all witnessed at the beginning of the program. Offenbach's early music training was in cello. He had a passion for composition, which led him to Paris, 1833. If you notice, he was very young, 14 years, when he moved to Paris, and it is very important now to mention his first true success was Orpheus Enfer in 1858. He was almost, if you notice, he was reaching a mature age. He was almost 40 when his first success breakthrough came up. And this Orpheus in the Underworld, 1858, is a satirical and irreverent work that marked the beginning of his fame. The composer's style was characterized by catchy tunes, rhythmic vitality, and a keen sense of parody. We will go back to these catchy tunes, the vitality, and the keen sense of parody. His operettas often satirize contemporary society and politics. Yes, we are going to get back to that, earning him both acclaim and criticism. Notable works include La Belle Hélène, La Vie Parisienne, La Père each contributing to Offenbach's reputation as the master of operetta. Offenbach's influence extended beyond the operetta stage. He composed a range of orchestral and chamber music, displaying his versatility. Despite facing financial challenges and occasional controversies, he remained a prolific composer, producing over 100 works in his career. You may keep in mind, as we have discussed, that it is usually the case for most composers that they have a hard time, at least in terms of money, It is not different for Maestro Offenbach, who suffered throughout his life to have the funds to keep composing. Tragically, Jacques Offenbach passed away on October 5th, 1880, just before the completion of his final masterpiece, Le Conte of Mont. If you recall and you have followed our previous programs, we also have in the previous series, in the previous season, we have Le Conte of Man, which is an extraordinary composition. Uh, Many people were surprised to see that he was able to compose such a serious opera when he had been doing just funny things as in the operettas. But let's keep moving on. And the two other paragraphs from ChatGPT are just platitudes, blah, 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 an indelible mark that ensures him a place among the greatest composers, and blah, blah, blah. But you remember, as you may recall, we have the following question that I like to ask ChatGPT is the order of his creations. And we are going to stop in three of those that I am about to mention. Notice Orphée aux Enfers, Orpheus in the Other World, the passage that we played at the beginning of today's program, the cancan, that is the cancan from this Orphée aux Enfers. And we're going to refer to what we just mentioned, or what was mentioned around the vitality and the catchy tunes, and how he like to, if not laugh, or maybe yes, openly laughing at other compositions, he liked parody. And Orpheus and Fair is in fact a parody. Of course, I am pretty sure you are aware of the very well known Orfeo de Euridice. The Orfeo de Euridice, a very classical opera, or from the classical period of opera, from which you have a very different style of composition, where you have very well known the Que farò senza Euridice, che farò senza Euridice, ta ra 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 ra, ta ra 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 ra, ta ra 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 ra, ta ra 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 ra. And so Maestro Offenbach says, okay, enough with the seriousness of Orfeo and the Euridice, his lover, he loses. Yeah, and there is a complete story around it. Enough with that. We are going to have that, and we are going to still to keep Orfeo and send him back to to hell, aux enfers, and we all are going to have fun. What a better way to challenge history of opera than taking one of its, I'm going to use the word sacred, one of its most sacred characters, it is Orfeo, and his sadness and the trip he takes to go back to his lover, and bringing him back to another story now called Orpheus Affair. And so Offenbach is telling us, come on, guys, let's have fun. As a very recent phrase from a movie saying, why so serious? Why do we have to be so serious about crying and all that still delicate but drama around him losing his lover? No, we are going to have it more fun. So, hell, let's faire some fun, and we are going to do that. That breakthrough of Orpheus and Fair 1858 gives us the best idea of what was going to be with Maestro Offenbach. Second creation, or the next listed here, is Bataclan, not that often performed. Then we go for La Belle Hélène. We go for Bar Bleu, 1866, La Vie Parisienne, 1866, La Reine Duchesse de Gerolstein, 1867. If you notice, it is almost 10 years after Orpheus and Fair. La Perechole, 1868. Robinson Crusoe, 1867. Les Brigands, 1869. Geneviève de Brabant, 1859. La Fille du Tambour Majeur. Of course, we can laugh at that. We're going to go back to that. 1879. Le Pont de Soupir, 1861. If you notice, ChatGPT, even though I asked it to provide them in chronological order, truth is that it provided it in the order it pleased it. But before we go into detail, talking now two of the operas that I just mentioned, let's go back to the comments that we have received from people in our email, operawillofsinging@gmail.com, operawillofsinging@gmail.com. And in this email, this person that also didn't share where he was writing from shares that he had wanted to send a note to say thank you for the programs from over 2 months, but that it took him a long time to decide to write these 3 lines because he's not a native speaker of English and he really doesn't know how to write. He shared that he understands the language, but it's unable to either speak it or write it. So, and I wanted to bring up this note because now that there are 72 countries listening and the vast majority of them, we are not native speakers of English. Of course, even though it is a language that it is allowing us to share this beautiful content of the opera, we understand that it may be also a challenge for people who really want to be in touch but say, hey, I do not either speak it or write it. What can I do? And my thoughts are, and it would be for everyone listening, if you want to to be in contact with us. Of course, you can always use Google Translate. Not the best translations come out from that place, but try to do that if you feel somehow comfortable. The point here is that we finally get in touch. And my other suggestion is that if you don't write it, but you feel comfortable speaking it, why don't you record an audio and attach the audio to your email and send it to us? We will gladly listen to your audio in the full understanding that not all of us are native speakers of English. Don't you worry about that because the important part here is that music is joining us. So please don't restrain from recording a message if you feel like it and attach it to your email and we will gladly listen to your message. Remember that when you are in contact with us, you have to tell us if you would like to have a response in private or if you would like me to read it in the program. You have to be very open about it because if you don't mention it, I will take by default that you want an answer in private. Going back to our celebration, we are thinking now the following countries. We are thinking Brazil, Spain, Italy, Sweden, Portugal, Austria, the Russian Federation, Spasiba, La Russie, Belgium. We also have Belgium, Thailand, and Malaysia. By the way, Thailand and Malaysia remind me that we have had a very positive acceptance in Asian countries, much to our surprise. Thank you very much to all you people for being loyal to our program. We have already stopped and talked a little about Orpheus and Fair, how it is a parody of Orfeo ed Euridice, or moreover, this legend, this myth around Orphe chasing or going to hell to save her beloved Euridice. So, we also, from the list that I just read, I would like to stop now for a second in La Belle Hélène. La Belle Hélène also really, believe me, if you have the time of looking for a recording on YouTube or anywhere else, you will realize very, very soon, from the very first 10 minutes, you will find that La Belle Hélène is just another hilarious composition by Maestro Offenbach. This time again, and we would like, you might be, yeah, I'm saying that you might be familiar because not everybody listening comes from European or Western countries. So not all of you may be aware, but if you're aware of the Iliad and the Odyssey, uh, this classic these classics from Greece that tell us the story of Homer. In fact, is the one that puts that these works are attributed to. Tells us the story of how the War of Troy starts, and it starts for the love of a woman, of a very, very beautiful woman. Of course, a war needed to start with the for based on the love for a woman or the passion, or moreover the desire for a beautiful woman that happens to be Helena de Troya is the source of this conflict. Again, going back to the classics, the same way he went to Orpheus and Eurydice. This classical now goes for the classical of the War of Troy and this conflict, and he builds another beautiful, 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 entertaining, super funny masterpiece where all the singers need to be excellent artists, I mean actors and actresses, because they have to tell so many beautiful are not beautiful, so many funny dialogues that you would certainly be enchanted with it. There is an aria that is usually extracted by the tenor from La Belle Hélène. You will listen to it in the very first half hour of this creation. You will recognize it. Please go there and find about it. Let's talk now a little more about Verbe Bleu. This one in special calls my attention because remember that Maestro Offenbach wanted us to have fun. Verbe Bleu is based on the story by the very well known writer of child stories. Of course, I am referring to Perrault, another French guy, and I am hesitating a little to share this with you because if you know the true complete story based on the Perrault story for children, the story is truly horrible. How was it ever considered to be a story for children? A man who is consumed in lust and desire for women that marries many of them and then ends up killing them and keeps the cadavers of her killings behind a secret door. I mean, how can that in nowadays could be a source of a criminal investigation for a serial killer? How can that be? Because that's what it really is about. It's a serial killer who kills women after he marries them. Once he gets bored and wants a new one, he goes and gets a new one. The criminal story. How was it ever considered a story for children, even if it has a moral? A fable or a moral that has moral, how can it even be considered a story for children? Maestro Offenbach is very well aware about it and takes part of this story but turns it into something very funny where you actually have a lesson where the killer, even though he asks his wives to be killed, there is fortunately actually none of them dies. Sorry for the spoiler, none of them dies, and at the end he gets his lesson. Maybe if you would like me to make a comparison, maybe the same way Maestro Mozart shares us as in Don Giovanni, that he finally gets a lesson. Less drama than in Don Giovanni, but same way he gets a lesson. He gets taught a lesson. That's the story of the horrible story of Barbe Bleue, but that in the hands of Maestro Offenbach, it's really worth watching. Unfortunately, there are not many recordings available, so you will have to invest some minutes in YouTube or other sources to find something that you would feel fine with watching it. And the next one that I wanted to talk about is La Fille du Tambour Majeur. But before we go for La Fille du Tambour Majeur, let's go back to another question or comment from our listeners. And it is my understanding that maybe he would like to be a guest in the program. He listened to the first Maria Callas program, and of course noticed that Sophie Lampton, the writer, the author of the book, the Callas Centennial, in this celebration of the Callas Centennial, the Callas imprint book. So he asks me if we would be open to inviting people from the audience to the programs. The answer is yes, of course. We would really, really, really love if any of you there says, I really love, and you provide the name of the singer. I really, really, really love Christian Flagstad, for instance, or I am a true fan of Nathalie Dessay, and I would like to be with you in a program talking about Nathalie Dessay. Can we do that? Yes, of course. This program was built with the purpose of sharing, and sharing is a two-way path. At this point, it is only one way from us to you, but if you feel like you would like to share something from your side to us, feel free to reach us at the email operawheelofsinging@gmail.com, operawheelofsinging@gmail.com. Send us your proposal of the topic. We take a look into this, and if it looks feasible, we will contact you back and provide you the best way to go ahead with the program. Of course, it might bring you back to the challenge we shared earlier that we know with 72 countries listening, most of them not being native speakers of English, you might find it difficult to express yourself in English language, which is the language that we use for this program. But if you feel comfortable of using English and you feel comfortable in joining us for a program, of course, write to us and ask for that opportunity, and we will do that. Continue with the letter, with the list of countries. Thank you very much to people in Japan. Thank you also to people in Georgia, people in the Philippines, people in Turkey, Norway, the Argentina, which recently joined, Hong Kong, Myanmar, South Africa, and Poland. Thank you very much, all of you listening to us. Also, people in Indonesia, people in Nigeria, people in Morocco, Slovakia, Denmark, Colombia, Singapore, Luxembourg, Iraq, and Chile. Thank you all for listening to us. And let's go back to the content from Maestro Offenbach. And now we're going to make a small stop at La Fille du Tambour Majeur. If you're familiar with Donizetti, this composer that we also talked about earlier in this series, then you are aware of La Fille du Régiment, from which there are also many hilarious and beautiful melodies. The aria for the tenor that I shared with you that I really don't like, a mes amis. Da, 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 da. And the melodies for Marie, you remember that we talked a lot about Marie in the past in La Vie du Régiment, because not only we talked about Maestro Donizetti in this season, but 2 seasons before, we also talked about La Fille du Régiment, so I know that you are very familiar with Marie, the main female character, the soprano there. And so Maestro Offenbach says, hey, why having only La Fille du Régiment by Maestro Donizetti when I can have my own version with La Fille du Tambour Majeur. So if you listen or if you watch, you have the opportunity of watching it, you will notice that there are many resemblances on the subject in the plot of the stories. Of course, this is not a copy of. Certainly, Maestro Offenbach's Fille du Tambour Majeur is later to La Fille du Régiment. Uh, we wouldn't like to say that it is based, but it is just his alternative, his eyes to a similar story that also makes us laugh. You could say that, of course, La Fille du Régiment is much more famous than Maestro's Offenbach's La Fille du Tambour Major, and that would be true because remember, this is an operetta. We have already talked about it. And we also have to mention that even though these are great creations by Maestro Offenbach, they are not that often represented. One of the challenges I was sharing with you earlier is the spoken language French. There are not many singers who are comfortable singing that French in spoken. Operetta has lots of spoken dialogues and being that fun. So that's why it is difficult to find as many recordings as we wish of these great creations by Maestro Offenbach. But still, he decided to go for his La Fille du Tambour Majeur. If you feel like it, please go ahead and spend around 2 hours of your time, very well invested time to enjoy life. Now, going back to ChatGPT, anecdotes around our composers, Orpheus in the underworld, or Orpheus d'Enfer. It is said that during the premiere, the Cancan captured too much attention that the people demanded an encore, which is unusual for the orchestral parts. And we can all understand. The second anecdote that ChatGPT shares is the speed of composition. Offenbach composed quickly. Another one, he just the same way as we mentioned about for Donizetti and Rossini, Maestro Offenbach was also a very fast composer. He composed La Belle Hélène, it is said, in 3 weeks. Uh, the personal appearance of Maestro Offenbach, a portly figure, was known for his distinctive look. His rotund physique became a part of his public image, and he was affectionately nicknamed Monsieur Crescendo due to his round shape. Well, who said that opera composers have to be slim, right? Satirical compositions, of course, he satirized about contemporary society and politics, and I also would like to go back to a comment that we have made in previous programs to parodize and to criticize from from the composer's creations may sound easy, but it is not. It really takes courage to defy the status quo and say, hey, Barbe Bleue is a horrible story. Perrault is describing a serial killer of women. Is basically what he's telling us when he says he's not going to be a serial killer in my story. Hey, you have invested too much time around the story of Orphée. Let's leave the drama outside of it and let's have fun. Orpheus Enfer. Hey, let's celebrate same way Donizetti did. Let's have La Fille du Tambour Majeur. Hey, what about this story about the War of Troy? Hey, let's make La Belle Hélène. It sounds easy, but it takes courage. It takes a genius and a very strong personality, a person who knows what he's made of in order to defy society. Following is easy. Criticizing from your position, it certainly is not. What are the most well-known numbers from Maestro Offenbach? Of course, Cancan, the opening of today's program. Uh, it is, in fact, the name of it is also known as the Infernal Gallop, which of Infernal it's basically very fun. The Cancan is in fact the Infernal Gallop. Of course, La Barcarola from Le Conte of Man, which we shared earlier. Les nuits, nuits d'amour, tararara, rarara, tararara, la 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 la. ChatGPT mentions a quelle linéaire from La Perechole, a catchy number from the operetta. I would invite you to, in fact, watch the complete Perechole because it is very interesting. Um, and before we wrap up today's program, because we have to reach today's program, I would like to continue with the list of thanking people who are listening to us. And I would like to take my time to send my appreciation to Peru, Greece, Ukraine, Turkey, Armenia, Zimbabwe, Croatia, Malta, Brunei, Jerusalem, Dominican Republic, Reunion, Lithuania, Guam, South Korea, Kuwait, Ireland, Taiwan, Vietnam, Andorra, Kenya, Pakistan, Hungary, Nepal, Switzerland, Finland, Tunisia, the United Arab Emirates, Ecuador, Bangladesh, Uganda, Bahamas, and Suriname. Thank you, all those countries, for being loyal to our program. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Last question that we posed to ChatGPT. Was Charles Offenbach in communication with other composers of his time? Because if you look at the timeline, Orfeos and Fer is famous, but Maestro Verdi has already composed his three most well-known creations, Traviata, Trovatore, and Rigoletto. And Richard Wagner is already building a name. Johann Strauss, another very famous composer, is also working in his own compositions. So, Maestro, his style, of course, he's contemporary to Bizet and contemporary to Leoncavallo, and still he keeps his own style. He decides to be loyal. He sees the rude criticism that Wagner builds around the classic opera, but he adheres to operetta. And he says, fine, you do what you like. I will continue doing what I like. And it is with this glorious, hilarious message from Maestro Offenbach that I would like to wrap up this season, this series of Chat GPT, telling us about of the most famous opera composers. Of course, the next season is in the works. You will learn very, very soon. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for it all.
We are posting more content in our profile in Coffee. You can find us there as Opera We Love Singing, all in one word. So go to Coffee, K as in key, O as in opera, dash, F as in food, and I as in ice. We love to see you there.